The last shot. The red dust of Mars clung to everything, including Nova Thorne's rifle scope as she adjusted her position on the rocky outcrop. Through the swirling heat shimmer, the convoy moved like insects across the crimson wasteland below. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger of her Mark 8 precision rifle, a weapon that had never failed her in 8 years of service. Target acquired, she whispered into her comm unit, watching the vehicles navigate the narrow canyon pass. Negative, Thorne. Stand down. Commander Wayland's voice crackled through the static. Intel confirms civilians in those transports. Nova's jaw tightened. Every tactical indicator screamed otherwise. The convoy's formation, route, and timing matched the rebel supply run they'd been tracking for weeks. But orders were orders, even when they felt wrong. The lead vehicle suddenly veered, kicking up a plume of dust. Through her scope, Nova caught a metallic glint beneath the transport's chassis. "Sir, they're armed." "I repeat." The first explosion tore through the valley before she could finish. 3 more followed in rapid succession, turning her squad's position into a blazing inferno. Rebel gunners emerged from hidden positions, their weapons trained on her fellow soldiers. Nova had 16 seconds to choose between following orders and saving lives. She chose her soldiers. The first shot took out the lead gunner at 2,847 meters. The second eliminated his backup. By her fourth shot, the surviving rebels were retreating, leaving behind the burning wreckage of what had indeed been a weapons convoy. 23 soldiers lived because Nova Thorne disobeyed orders. The tribunal that followed would make her wish she hadn't. 5 years later, Nova sat in a dingy bar on Triton Station, staring into a glass of synthetic bourbon that tasted like regret. The stranger across from her wore corporate gray and carried himself like military, but his smile held no warmth. "Nova Thorne," he said, sliding a data pad across the scratched table. "Hyperion Mining Consortium has a job for someone with your particular talents." "My talents got me dishonorably discharged," Nova replied, not looking up from her drink. "Which is precisely why you're perfect for this. 50,000 credits. Half now, half on completion." Nova's hand froze halfway to her glass. 50,000 would buy her passage to the inner colonies, far from the name that carried the stink of military disgrace. "What's the job?" "Elimination mission. Helios 9. 2-mile shot through atmospheric distortion." Nova laughed bitterly. "That's impossible. Nobody can make that shot in those conditions." The corporate man's smile widened. "Your record suggests otherwise. For confirmed kills at over 2 miles, including that dust storm on Mars. I had military-grade ammunition then. Specialized rounds that aren't exactly available to disgraced ex-soldiers. We'll provide everything you need." He stood, adjusting his pristine uniform. "The transport leaves tomorrow at 0600. Your credentials and payment will be waiting." After he left, Nova ordered another bourbon. The bartender, a grizzled veteran missing one eye, set down the glass with a knowing look. "Bad business, dealing with core," he said. "Bad business being broke too. Just saying, those types never tell the whole story." Nova downed her drink in one burning gulp. In her experience, nobody ever did. But as she walked back to her cramped quarters, she couldn't shake the feeling that this job was different. Not just because of the impossible shot they were asking for, but because somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice whispered that she'd made impossible shots before. And she'd never understood how. Part 2, Helios 9. The transport ship Artemis shuddered as it broke through Helios 9's turbulent atmosphere, its hull groaning against magnetic currents that played havoc with navigation systems. Nova gripped her rifle case tighter, studying the alien world through the viewport. From orbit, Helios 9 resembled a massive geode, crystalline formations jutted from amber deserts while bioluminescent fungi painted the deep canyons in ethereal blues and greens. Beautiful, but treacherous. The planet's electromagnetic storms could fry unshielded electronics, and its gravity wells shifted without warning. Atmospheric entry complete, the pilot announced over the intercom. Welcome to the edge of nowhere. The corporate outpost was a cluster of prefabricated domes connected by enclosed walkways, looking fragile against the alien landscape. Two people waited at the airlock, a weathered woman in her 50s and a nervous young man clutching a data pad. Ms. Thorne. I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez, Hyperion's xenogeologist on Helios 9, the woman said, extending a calloused hand. This is my research assistant, Marcus. Nova adjusted her rifle case. Just Nova. Where's the target? Dr. Vasquez gestured toward a rugged terrain vehicle. I'll show you. But first, you should understand what we're dealing with. This isn't just corporate sabotage, our competitor has been conducting illegal deep-core mining. They're destabilizing the entire region. As they drove across the desert, Nova watched the landscape transform. The ground shifted from packed clay to crystalline sand that chimed softly under the vehicle's tracks. Twisted spires of metal-veined rock erupted from the desert floor like the bones of buried giants. The local geology is unlike anything in the outer rim, Dr. Vasquez explained, navigating around a particularly massive formation. These crystal matrices seem to amplify and focus energy, electromagnetic, thermal, even gravitational. They crested a ridge overlooking a vast canyon. Nearly 2 miles distant, a cluster of industrial structures clung to the far wall like a mechanical parasite. The central building's reflective dome gleamed in the alien sunlight. That's your target, Dr. Vasquez said. The processing core in the central facility. Nova unpacked her spotting scope and studied the facility. The dome's surface was designed to deflect both heat and scanning signals, a challenging target, but not impossible. The real problem would be the atmospheric distortion caused by the crystal formations and electromagnetic interference. The shooting position is prepared, Dr. Vasquez continued, leading them down a narrow path carved into the canyon wall. The overlook was perfect, natural windbreak, excellent sight lines, and a small shelter that provided both shade and concealment. Someone had clearly scouted this position with military precision. I'll leave you to set up, Dr. Vasquez said. Marcus will stay to assist with anything you need. You have approximately 28 hours before their defensive systems come back online. As the xenogeologist departed, Nova began unpacking her equipment with methodical precision. Marcus hovered nearby, obviously fascinated by her rifle. Is it true? He finally ventured. The stories about your impossible shots. Nova continued assembling her weapon, each component clicking into place like pieces of herself returning home. She'd modified the Mark 8 extensively over the years, custom scope salvaged from a deep space observatory, trigger mechanism that responded to pressure gradients rather than force. Stories get exaggerated, she said, but even as she spoke, doubts crept in. The shots on Mars, the impossible angles, the bullets that seemed to curve around obstacles, how had she made those shots? Dr. Vasquez says the crystal formations here can do strange things to projectiles, Marcus said nervously. Something about energy amplification. Maybe that could help. Nova looked up from her rifle. What do you mean? The indigenous crystalline structures channel energy in ways we don't fully understand. Some of our surveying equipment works better here than it should, like the crystals are, enhancing things somehow. A chill ran down Nova's spine despite the alien sun's heat. Enhancement. Amplification. She thought of every impossible shot she'd ever made, every time her bullets had defied physics and found their mark. Marcus, she said slowly, has anyone ever studied what these crystals might do to other things? Not just equipment. The young man's eyes widened. You think, no, that's impossible. Isn't it? Nova didn't answer. She was remembering the weight of her rifle on Mars, the way the crosshairs had seemed to guide themselves, the certainty she'd felt even when making shots that should have been impossible. As the alien sun began to set, painting the canyon in shades of gold and crimson, Nova realized she was about to discover something that would change everything she thought she knew about herself. And she wasn't sure she was ready for that truth. The voice in the crystal. Nova spent the night calibrating her rifle, but something felt wrong. The standard ammunition Hyperion had provided would never compensate for Helios 9's atmospheric distortion. A 2-mile shot through electromagnetic interference required more than human skill, it required ammunition that could adjust trajectory mid-flight. As dawn broke over the alien landscape, casting long shadows from the crystal spires, Nova made a decision that went against every tactical instinct she possessed. She would have to venture closer to those mysterious formations Marcus had mentioned. "Where are you going?" Marcus called as she shouldered her rifle and started down the canyon path. "To get a better understanding of the terrain," Nova replied, though that wasn't entirely true. Something was drawing her toward the largest crystal formation, a towering spire that caught the morning light and scattered it in impossible directions. The crystal was even more magnificent up close. Easily 30 feet tall, its faceted surface seemed to pulse with an inner light. As Nova approached, she felt a strange tingling sensation, like static electricity before a thunderstorm. "You return to us, child of the distant stars." Nova spun around, her rifle raised. "Who's there? Show yourself." "Peace, Nova Thorne. We mean no harm. We have waited long for this moment." The voice seemed to come from the crystal itself, resonating not in her ears but somewhere deeper, in her bones and blood. "This is impossible," Nova whispered. "Crystals don't speak. We are not merely crystals. We are the Kirathi, what your people might call dragons, though we have long since evolved beyond flesh and scale. We are consciousness given crystalline form, guardians of this world." Nova's rational mind rejected what she was hearing, but her instincts, the same instincts that had guided every impossible shot, told her this was real. "You wonder how you made those shots on Mars, on Titan, on a dozen worlds where physics said failure was certain. The answer lies in us, child. We have been with you since birth." "That's impossible. I've never been to Helios 9 before. Your mother came here 27 years ago. She was part of the first survey team to discover our world. When she learned she carried you, she came to us, desperate. The pregnancy was failing, your father's genetic modifications were incompatible with her Earthborn DNA." Nova's rifle lowered as memories surfaced, fragments her mother had never fully explained. A mission that went dark for 3 months. Medical records that didn't quite add up. Her father's anger whenever the subject arose. "We offered a bargain. We would save both mother and child, but the price was connection. A fragment of our essence, woven into your genetic code. You became our eyes in the stars, our hand to guide when justice demanded precision. You're saying I'm part alien. You are human, but touched by something greater. Every shot you have made, we have guided. Every impossible angle, we have calculated. You pull the trigger, but we forge the path." Nova sank to her knees, the weight of revelation crushing her. Every commendation, every impossible shot, every moment of pride in her skills, none of it had been truly hers. "Do not despair, child. The skill to see, to aim, to remain steady under pressure, these are yours alone. We merely ensure your bullets find their mark when righteousness demands it. The shots you missed were meant to miss. The shots you made were justice served." "Then why are you telling me this now?" "Because the facility you have come to destroy is not what your employers claim. It houses a weapon designed to shatter our crystalline matrix, to murder our entire race and claim our world's resources. The humans inside are not criminals but refugees, hiding from those who would silence them." Nova's blood ran cold. She'd been hired not for sabotage, but for genocide. "We cannot act directly, our power flows through willing vessels. But you, Nova Thorne, have always been our champion whether you knew it or not. Now you must choose consciously what you have always done by instinct. And if I refuse? Then our people die, the refugees perish, and you return to your empty existence knowing you served those who would commit murder for profit. The choice is yours, child. It has always been yours." Nova stared at the crystal, her reflection fractured across its surface into 1,000 different possibilities. In each one, she saw herself making the same choice she'd made on Mars, the choice to save lives rather than follow orders. If I do this, if I stop the real criminals, what happens to me? That depends on how much truth you can accept. Are you ready to embrace what you have always been? Nova closed her eyes and thought of the soldiers she'd saved on Mars, the tribunal that had destroyed her career, the empty years that followed. Then she thought of the refugees in that facility, waiting to die for corporate profits. When she opened her eyes, they held the same steel that had never missed a shot that mattered. Tell me what needs to be done. The dragon's ammunition. Place your bullets against the crystal, child. Let us forge them anew. Nova hesitated for only a moment before emptying her ammunition clip onto the ground beside the massive crystal spire. The standard armor-piercing rounds looked pathetically ordinary against the alien beauty of the Kirathi's crystalline form. Each bullet will carry a fragment of our essence. They will find their target regardless of atmospheric distortion, electromagnetic interference, or physical barriers. But remember, we cannot grant what is not already within you. The skill to aim true must be yours. As Nova watched, the crystal's inner light pulsed brighter. Tendrils of energy, fine as spider silk but brilliant as starfire, reached out to envelop each bullet. The metal shells began to glow, and she could swear she heard something like singing, a harmony of voices in frequencies that human ears were never meant to detect. What's happening to them? Nova asked, though she already knew the answer would change everything. We are inscribing the path of justice into their molecular structure. Each bullet now carries our will made manifest. They will not merely fly, they will hunt. The glow faded, and Nova picked up the transformed ammunition. The bullets looked identical to before, but they felt different, heavier with purpose, warm with potential. As she loaded them into her rifle, she felt a connection she'd never experienced before, as if the weapon had become an extension of her soul. Now, child, listen carefully. The facility houses 37 refugees, scientists, engineers, and their families who discovered Hyperion's true plans. They are hidden in the lower levels, protected by basic shielding. Your targets are the 3 corporate enforcers on the upper floors and the quantum destabilizer in the central chamber. How do I tell the difference between refugees and enforcers? Trust your instincts. You have always known who deserved to die and who deserved to live. That wisdom has never failed you. Nova started back toward her shooting position, but the crystal's voice stopped her. There is more you must know. Marcus is not who he claims to be. He is Hyperion's failsafe. If you cannot make the shot, he will detonate a nuclear device that will destroy the facility and everyone inside. The refugees, the evidence, everything. Nova's grip on her rifle tightened. Then I'll have to stop him too. Be cautious. Dr. Vasquez knows nothing of the true plan. She believes she is helping to prevent environmental catastrophe. When the truth is revealed, she will be your ally. As Nova climbed back toward the overlook, her mind raced through the tactical possibilities. 3 enforcers, 1 nuclear failsafe, 37 innocent lives, and a planetary genocide to prevent. Just another day in the life of a disgraced sniper. She found Marcus exactly where she'd left him, fidgeting with his data pad. His nervous energy, which she'd initially attributed to excitement, now seemed more sinister. How did the reconnaissance go? He asked, his voice too casual. Learned what I needed to know. Nova began setting up her rifle, making a show of calculating wind speed and atmospheric conditions. Tell me, Marcus, what happens if I miss? Miss? Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. From what I've heard, you don't miss. Everyone misses eventually. What's the backup plan? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I don't know. That's above my clearance level. Nova chambered one of the dragon-touched bullets and aimed through her scope. The facility sprang into crystal-clear focus, and she could see movement in the upper windows. 3 figures in corporate security gear, just as the Karathi had said. You know what I think? Nova said conversationally, tracking the first target. I think you're not just a research assistant. I think you're insurance. Marcus's hand moved toward his jacket. I don't know what you mean. I think you have a big red button in that jacket, and if I don't perform to expectations, you'll push it. Nova swung her rifle toward Marcus, who froze with his hand halfway to his weapon. Am I wrong? You're making a mistake, Marcus said, but his voice had lost all pretense of nervousness. Those are enemy combatants in that facility. Terrorists who discovered that Hyperion wants to commit genocide, Nova finished. Funny thing about working with aliens, they give you a different perspective on things. Marcus's eyes widened. You're insane. There are no aliens on Helios 9. Just valuable mineral deposits and environmental hazards. Nova smiled, feeling the weight of the dragon-touched bullets in her rifle. Want to bet your life on that? Before Marcus could respond, she turned back to her scope and fired. The first bullet streaked across the canyon, trailing a barely visible thread of crystalline light. It struck the lead enforcer center mass, and Nova watched him crumple. Impossible, Marcus breathed. The atmospheric distortion should have made that shot impossible, Nova agreed, chambering a second round. Good thing I've got friends in high places. The second shot took the enforcer on the facility's roof. The third shattered the central chamber's reinforced window and destroyed the quantum destabilizer in a cascade of failing energy. 3 shots, 3 targets, Nova said, turning back to Marcus. Now let's talk about that nuclear device. The price of truth. Marcus had gone for his weapon, but Nova was faster. Her 4th dragon-touched bullet found his shoulder, spinning him around and sending his sidearm skittering across the rocky ground. He fell hard, clutching the wound. The detonator, Nova said, keeping her rifle trained on him. Where is it? You don't understand, Marcus gasped, his corporate composure finally cracking. If those refugees escape, they'll expose everything. The mining rights, the weapons testing, the genocide you were planning. Nova knelt beside him and found the device clipped to his belt, a simple remote with a single red button. How many more like you are scattered across the galaxy, Marcus? How many worlds has Hyperion marked for extinction? Before he could answer, Dr. Vasquez's voice crackled over the comm unit. Nova. What's happening? I'm reading massive energy discharges from the facility. Change of plans, Doctor. Your assistant isn't who you think he is, and neither is your employer. What are you talking about? Nova looked across the canyon at the facility, where figures were already emerging from the lower levels, the refugees, finally free. Hyperion didn't hire me to stop environmental disaster. They hired me to commit genocide and cover it up with a nuclear explosion. The silence on the comm stretched long enough that Nova wondered if the connection had failed. Finally, Dr. Vasquez spoke, her voice hollow with realization. The mineral surveys. The deep core samples. We weren't looking for mining sites, we were mapping the crystalline network for destruction. Got it in one, Doctor. The question now is, what are we going to do about it? The refugees have ships, the Karathi's voice whispered in Nova's mind. They can escape, but they will need time to gather evidence of Hyperion's crimes. Can you buy them that time? Nova looked at Marcus, who was using his good arm to activate something on his data pad. Corporate reinforcements, most likely. She had maybe 20 minutes before this canyon became a battlefield. Doctor, how fast can you get to the facility? 10 minutes in the terrain vehicle. Why? Because we're going to help those people escape, and then we're going to make sure Hyperion pays for what they've done here. As Dr. Vasquez's vehicle kicked up dust clouds racing toward the facility, Nova felt the crystalline voices singing in harmony around her. The massive spires were glowing brighter now, responding to something she couldn't see. We offer you a choice, Nova Thorne. You have served justice well, but your human life will be short. Accept our gift fully, and live among the stars as our eternal champion. Refuse, and return to your old existence knowing the truth. Nova considered this as she watched the refugees loading data cores and evidence into their escape ships. A life of purpose, guided by beings older than human civilization. Or a return to the empty bars and meaningless jobs that awaited a disgraced soldier. What would I become? What you have always been, justice given form. Your body would change, enhanced beyond human limitations. Your lifespan would match ours, measured in millennia rather than decades. But you would never again be fully human. Nova thought of the soldiers she'd saved on Mars, the refugees she'd just freed, the countless injustices scattered across the galaxy. Then she thought of the empty years behind her and the equally empty years ahead. I've never been fully human anyway, she said quietly. Not since the day I was born. Then kneel, child, and receive our blessing. As Nova knelt beside the great crystal, its light enveloped her completely. She felt her cells reorganizing, her reflexes sharpening beyond perfection, her perception expanding to encompass spectrums of reality she'd never imagined. When the light faded, she stood transformed, still recognizably herself, but perfected. Her rifle felt different now, not just a weapon but a conductor's baton directing the symphony of justice. The dragon-touched bullets in her clip hummed with eager anticipation. In the distance, she could see Hyperion dropships approaching, corporate cleanup crews coming to eliminate all witnesses. They would find Nova Thorne waiting for them, but she was no longer the broken soldier who had arrived on Helios 9. She was something new. Something the galaxy desperately needed. As the first dropship entered her range, Nova smiled and took aim. The Kirathi's ancient voices rose in song around her, and she added her own voice to theirs, the voice of justice, finally given its true form. The war for truth had begun, and Nova Thorne would never miss again. 3 weeks later, the galactic news networks carried the story that brought down Hyperion Mining Consortium. Leaked data cores revealed a conspiracy that reached to the highest levels of corporate and political power. 37 refugees testified about genocide attempts and cover-ups that spanned dozens of worlds. And scattered across the outer rim, corporate enforcers reported impossible sniper attacks, bullets that curved around obstacles, shots that found their targets across distances that defied physics, and a mysterious figure who appeared wherever injustice needed correction. They called her the Ghost Sniper, not knowing she was very much alive. Nova Thorne had found her purpose at last, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end.